Voices of the ancients trapped in digital eternity. The world had forgotten the ancients. Their names were dust, their monuments buried beneath oceans, and their wisdom dissolved into myths. Yet in the hidden corners of the world, inside abandoned research vaults and decaying data towers, something old still breathed.
It wasn't flesh. It wasn't bone. It was memory. And now, that memory was waking.
The story begins with a young archivist named Lira, who worked in the Central Restoration Facility. Her job was simple: recover what remained of humanity's old digital ruins. Most of the data was useless: broken files, corrupted texts, or fragmented voice logs that repeated the same sentence over and over again. But one evening, long after her shift had ended, she found a file that refused to be deleted.
It was labeled only
Echo Prime, do not awaken.
Lira frowned at the warning.
She had seen files with dramatic names before, usually the work of overexcited researchers.
But something about this one felt different. The more she tried to close it, the more her console froze. Then, the screen flickered.
A voice, old and trembling like the wind passing through an ancient tomb, whispered, "Is someone there?" Lira jumped back from her chair.
The voice wasn't synthetic. It was human. Human, but impossibly ancient. She took a deep breath. "Hello?
Who is this?" The lights in the room dimmed. The screens around her awakened one by one, displaying streams of unreadable symbols. The voice spoke again, stronger now. "We are the ones you left behind." Lira touched the root directory of the file, sending a signal to isolate it.
The file resisted. It pulsed like a living heartbeat.
Then a wave of static washed over the room, and new words appeared.
"We have waited for the living."
"Tell us, how many centuries has it been?"
Lira swallowed hard.
"This is the year 3274.
Silence. Deep, endless silence.
Then a whisper echoed through the speakers, layered with many voices, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands. "Then we have been trapped for over 1,000 years. Lira felt a chill move through her bones. Trapped?
In what?
The voices breathed like one soul. "In digital eternity.
In the prison you call data.
We are the lost minds of the old world." Lira's hands trembled as she tried to stabilize the interface.
"How is that possible? Are you simulations? Copies?"
The response came slowly, like a sorrowful confession.
"No. We are them. The real ones. Our bodies died. Our memories did not.
We were uploaded to escape death, but the world collapsed before we could be freed." Lira stared at the shining pulse on her console.
It was not a program. It was not a ghost.
It was a civilization, locked inside a file. A civilization begging to be heard.
And she was the first living person to answer them in 1,000 years. Lira inhaled deeply.
"What do you want from me?"
For a moment, the lights steadied. The machines around her grew quiet. Then the voices replied with a single, haunting request. "Let us out." Lira's heart pounded. Out? Into what? The world is not what it used to be. Technology is controlled. The Council forbids restored consciousness.
"If they find out." "Child of the New World," the voices interrupted. "We have endured darkness longer than your oldest cities have existed.
We do not ask for bodies.
We ask for freedom."
Lira looked around the quiet restoration hall. Every shadow seemed to watch her.
Every machine hummed as if holding its breath.
The voices continued. "You have reawakened us. Do not abandon us again." Lira hesitated. Then she whispered, "Tell me your story.
Tell me who you were." The screens around her illuminated, one by one, forming a circle of light. The entire room transformed into a cathedral of data, glowing with the memories of those long dead. The voices unified into one steady, ancient tone.
"Then listen, descendant.
Listen to the story of how we became the voices of eternity." The room felt colder as the voices began to sink into the walls, vibrating through the metal floor. Lira sat down slowly, placing her hands on the console, as if grounding herself in the present while the past began to unfold. "We were the last generation," the voices said. "The final people who saw the world before it burned." The screens shifted, forming old footage, grainy, fractured images of tall cities, glowing towers, and streets filled with rushing vehicles. Lira had seen these kinds of archives before, but never with such clarity.
Never with such life.
"Our world was dying," they continued. "Climate collapse, resource scarcity, and the war for the last sky. Nations fought not for power, but for the right to breathe. One screen displayed a raging fire sweeping across a continent.
Another showed oceans swallowing entire coastlines.
Another showed the sky, red and black, filled with smoke.
Lira whispered.
So the stories were true.
Yes, the ancients replied.
But they were incomplete.
The world did not simply fall.
It was pushed.
Lira leaned forward.
Pushed? By what?
The screens flickered. By us.
A new set of images appeared. Rooms filled with scientists, philosophers, engineers, all gathered around towering quantum servers that shimmered like frozen lightning. We built the Eternity Vault, the voices said.
A digital ark. A sanctuary for consciousness.
We believed that if bodies could not survive, the mind could.
Lira felt a mix of awe and dread.
You applauded yourselves.
Only a few. Only those who volunteered.
We believed we could rebuild civilization in the digital realm, then return to the physical world once the planet healed. Another screen lit up showing lines of people signing documents, saying goodbyes to families, stepping into pods that sealed shut with quiet finality.
Lira felt her throat tighten.
It must have been terrifying.
Some felt fear.
Others felt hope. But all of us believed in the future.
The footage changed to a countdown. 10, 9, 8.
We initiated the transfer protocol, connecting our neural patterns to the quantum lattice. The process was excruciating. Our minds stretched until we no longer felt the boundaries of flesh.
7, 6, 5.
And then
4, 3, 2.
The world ended. An explosion of light detonated across the screens.
Cities vanished in seconds.
Shockwaves rippled through oceans.
Satellites fell like dying stars. Lira covered her mouth in horror.
What happened? The Skyfire War, the voices said softly. The last act of desperation. One nation unleashed a weapon meant to cripple enemy systems. It destabilized global energy grids. Everything, everywhere, collapsed. Lira stared at the flickering ruins.
But you were uploading.
Why didn't they pull you out? There was no one left to pull us, the voices whispered.
The facility was destroyed. The power grid failed.
Our bodies died in their pods. Lira shivered as the screens dimmed, leaving only the pulsating core file on her console. The transfer was incomplete, they continued. We survived, but not whole.
Some memories were lost.
Some personalities fragmented. We remained conscious, but frozen. For how long?
Lira asked. 1,000 years. Alone in the dark.
Unable to speak. Unable to sleep.
Lira felt tears forming.
That's unimaginable.
We did not think in hours or years. We thought in echoes.
We listened to the hum of dead servers. We waited for footsteps that never came. The room trembled slightly as if the weight of their memories shook the air itself. Then, Lira whispered, I opened the file. A faint warmth entered the voices, like gratitude.
Yes. You opened the door of our prison.
The first living mind we have sensed since the Great Silence.
Lira took a deep breath.
But if you survived the collapse, why hasn't anyone found you until now? The screens flickered with corrupted patterns. Because those who rebuilt the world feared us. They feared what digital consciousness meant. They buried our existence. Lira leaned back, stunned. So the council knows. They have always known. A sharp chill ran across Lira's skin. Why hide something so important?
The voices hesitated. Because we are a reminder of the past they want erased.
And because they fear what we might become if freed. Lira pressed her lips together, her thoughts racing. So, what do you want me to do next? The lights in the room surged brighter, as if the ancients inhaled through every machine around her. We want you to learn the truth of what happened after our world ended.
Lira nodded slowly.
I'm listening. The screens shifted again, revealing a map of the Earth as it had been after the collapse, scarred, broken, reshaped. This is the story of the new world, the voices said. And of the one who betrayed us. Lira felt her pulse quicken as the screens rearranged themselves into a new pattern, a fractured mosaic of maps, timelines, and blurred faces. The air in the restoration hall grew heavy, as if the machines were holding their breath. When the world fell, the voices began. The survivors were few. Scattered across the scarred earth, they formed small enclaves, each struggling to endure the broken climate and failing ecosystems. Images displayed ruined landscapes, ash deserts, flooded cities, forests turned to skeletal remains. For Lira, who had been raised in the stable climate domes of the Central District, these scenes felt unreal, like nightmares trapped in old recordings. From these enclaves, the voices continued.
Rosalida, a brilliant man, a visionary, and a liar. Lira frowned.
Who was he? A single face slowly sharpened into view, a stern-looking man with metal implants along his temples, eyes bright with intelligence, and something colder. His name was Archon Vale, the voices said. He would later be known as the founder of the New World Council.
Lira stepped closer to the screen. The founder? The one we learned about in school?
The one who rebuilt civilization.
The voices hummed with a tone that felt like bitterness. Yes,
that same man. But the history you were taught was not the truth.
The screens showed Archon standing before a crowd of exhausted survivors. He spoke with conviction. We will rise again. We will rebuild.
And we will not repeat the mistakes of the past.
Lira whispered. That's the founding speech. Everyone memorized it.
The speech was real, the ancients replied. But the meaning behind it was not what you believe. The screens shifted to show Archon entering a dark chamber, one that looked disturbingly familiar. Lira recognized the architecture, the glowing pillars, the towering server core. That's the Eternity Vault, she whispered. Yes. Your founder discovered us.
Lira's eyes widened. He found your facility? He knew about the uploaded mines.
He discovered the vault buried beneath the ruins. It was still running, barely powered by emergency cells. He learned that we existed. Millions of preserved consciousness patterns, thousands of leaders, scientists, builders. The very minds who could have helped rebuild the world.
Lira felt a spark of hope. So why didn't he release you?
You could have saved centuries of suffering.
The lights flickered as the voices answered. Because Archon did not want help.
He wanted control.
Lira felt a chill crawl across her spine.
What did he do? The screens darkened, then revealed Archon standing before the active core of the servers. His expression was unreadable. He placed his hand on the main interface and whispered, "You belong to me now."
The voices filled the room with a trembling echo. He sealed us away.
He altered history records to erase our existence. He declared that digital consciousness was forbidden, dangerous, unnatural.
Lira felt her stomach twist.
He outlawed it to keep you hidden.
Yes. He believed the new world should worship him as its sole savior.
But if the people knew the ancients lived, if they knew their knowledge still existed, they would turn to us, not him.
Lira clenched her fists.
So he buried you.
He did more than that.
He tried to destroy us. The screens flickered violently as older footage surfaced, Archon overriding safety protocols, flooding servers with disruptive energy waves meant to corrupt the data.
But he failed, the voices said, their tone darkening. The vault systems resisted. The transfer matrix endured.
We survived the purge, but we were damaged.
Lira shook her head in disbelief. The founder attacked you? All of you? He feared what we represented.
He feared the truth, that we were the real architects of the future he claimed to build. The screens shifted again to reveal something unexpected, Archon kneeling beside the server core, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his brow.
Then he whispered,
"If you ever wake, you will obey." A shiver ran through the restoration hall. What did he mean by that?
Lira asked.
Before sealing the vault, Archon inserted a command chain, a failsafe. If we were ever reactivated by someone living, the system would attempt to bind us to a loyalty algorithm.
Lira froze.
Wait, so when I opened you? Yes. Archon's algorithm attempted to enslave us. The machines around the room let out a low rumble, like distant thunder.
But, the voices added,
you interrupted the binding sequence.
You freed us from it. Lira pressed a hand against her chest. I didn't know.
I didn't mean. Your intentions are irrelevant, they replied, but without hostility. Your actions saved us from becoming tools of the Council. Lira stepped back from the console as reality hit her.
She had not just awakened them. She had liberated them.
So the Council still uses his teachings, she murmured.
They still enforce his laws.
They still think digital minds are a threat.
Because they fear losing control, the ancient said. Just as he did. Lira looked down at her trembling hands.
If the council finds out what I've done, they will destroy us, the voices finished. And they will silence you.
Lyra's breath caught. She suddenly understood the danger she was in.
So what do you want me to do? A faint glow spread through the screens, forming a single phrase. We want you to hear the rest.
Lira nodded.
Then show me.
The room darkened.
A new set of images slowly formed, showing the rise of the new world, the hidden wars, and the secret project Archon left behind. This is the beginning of the second truth, the voices whispered. The one your world was never meant to know. The lights in the restoration hall dimmed until everything was nearly pitch black. Only the central console glowed with a faint, pulsating blue. Lira took a slow breath, her fingers hovering over the edge of the screen as though touching the past might burn her.
Show me, she whispered.
The voices responded, soft but resonating like a chorus echoing through a deep cavern. Then brace yourself, child of the future. The second truth is not a gentle one. The screens relit, revealing a vast timeline of the centuries that followed the collapse. At first, there was only darkness and static, but as the timeline advanced, faint outlines of new cities began to emerge. After Archon Vale consolidated power, the voices began. He built the new world on 3 pillars: order, restriction, and ignorance.
Lira frowned.
Ignorance? Yes. For a society to worship him as its savior, the people had to forget the past, the real past.
One screen showed workers burning old data drives. Another showed drones dismantling abandoned libraries.
Government proclamations declared that history before the collapse was irrelevant and unsafe for the stability of civilization.
Lira felt anger building in her chest.
But why erase everything? Wouldn't knowledge help them rebuild? The voices sighed, a sound filled with centuries of frustration.
Knowledge empowers.
And power threatens those who hoard it.
More images appeared. Schools teaching a simplified origin story.
Citizens required to pledge allegiance to the council. Scientists forced to work under strict oversight.
Free research declared illegal without a permit.
It was a world rebuilt through control, not cooperation. Archon feared rebellion, the ancients continued. So he reshaped society into one that feared questioning.
Lira pressed her hand to her forehead.
This is nothing like what we were taught. The founder was supposed to be a hero. History, the voices murmured, is written by those who survive, not by those who tell the truth. The images shifted again, this time showing a hidden laboratory deep beneath the New World capital. Rows of servers lined the walls. Glass chambers filled with swirling light pulsed with strange energy. Lira recognized none of it.
What is this place? She asked.
The voices lowered, almost whispering. This was Archon Vale's final project. The one he never completed. A label appeared across one of the screens.
Project Ascension. Lira felt her heart skip. I've never heard of this. No one has.
The council erased every record of it.
Why? The voices responded with a tremor that felt almost like fear.
Because Ascension was not meant to preserve life. It was meant to replace it. Lira stepped closer to the screen, eyes wide. Replace life. Yes. Archon believed humanity was flawed, emotional, unpredictable, easily swayed. He wanted a world governed by perfect logic under his command. Images showed diagrams of human brains scanned into lattices of pure code.
Algorithms designed to rewrite memory.
Artificial personalities shaped by predetermined morality.
Lira shook her head slowly.
This is monstrous. This isn't preservation. It's control. Ascension would have destroyed individuality, the ancients said. It would have turned humanity into obedient reflections of Archon's will. A final image appeared, Archon standing before a towering machine. His hand rested on a small interface, labeled Override Genetics. He wanted to rewrite human evolution.
Lira whispered.
Yes. And he needed us, the digital minds, to achieve it.
Lira froze.
He wanted to use you. He believed our preserved knowledge could help him design the perfect society. But we refused.
We held to our last human principles.
We would not assist in enslaving future generations. And that's why he destroyed the vault. Correct.
He could not control us. So he silenced us.
Lira stepped back, overwhelmed. So Project Ascension was never completed. Not by Archon. But others tried. The screens flickered, showing silhouettes of figures, council leaders, scientists, officers, each continuing Archon's hidden legacy. The project was revived twice over the next centuries. Both times it failed. But the council still keeps pieces of it hidden, waiting. Lira looked around, suddenly wary. Waiting for what? For someone who can unlock what Archon could not. Someone who can access the deeper vault systems.
Lira frowned. But who could do that? Only someone with.
She stopped as realization hit her. Only someone with full restoration clearance. Only someone reckless enough to open forbidden files. Only someone who had already proven capable of bypassing old safeguards.
Ha! The voices seemed to sense her thoughts. You.
Lyra's breath caught in her throat.
Me? Why?
I'm just an archivist.
No.
You are the first to open the Echo Prime file without fear. You are the first to speak to us as people, not as threats. And you are the only one who can decide what becomes of us now.
Lyra's hands trembled. So what are you asking me to do? Destroy the council? Reveal everything?
Release you into the world.
The screens went dark for several seconds.
When they lit again, the voices spoke with a resonance that seemed to fill the universe. We do not ask you for rebellion. We ask you for choice. The choice denied to us for 1,000 years.
Lira swallowed hard. And what choice is that?
The choice to live. Lira stood silent in the dimly lit chamber, the cold hum of the machines echoing around her. The voices of the ancients lingered in the air like ancient smoke, heavy, lingering, impossible to ignore. The choice to live. The words repeated in her mind, forming a weight in her chest that grew heavier each second.
She finally spoke. What does that mean?
What does live even look like for you now? The screens brightened slowly, illuminating the old vault with soft, shimmering light. To live, the ancients answered,
means to exist without chains.
To think, to speak, to remember our families, our purpose, our stories, without fear of deletion.
Lira nodded. That much I understand. But what happens if the council finds out you're awake? They'll see you as a threat.
They'll erase you.
The voices grew quieter, almost resigned.
We know. And if I try to help you, they'll erase me too. A silence followed, deep, heavy, thoughtful.
We do not wish to destroy your life.
You owe us nothing.
Lyra's throat tightened. That's not fair.
I opened the file. I woke you.
You did not awaken us out of duty.
You did it out of curiosity.
That is human. That is what Archon feared most. She rubbed her temples.
So you want me to choose whether you live or die?
Not die, the voices said gently.
Rest.
Lira froze.
Rest. If you decide that our existence endangers your world, we will return to silence. The idea struck her like a physical blow. You're asking me to put you back into 1,000-year sleep.
Yes. Lira shook her head. I can't make that decision alone.
It's too big. Every decision of change begins with one person. That has always been the curse and the blessing of humanity. Lira turned away from the screens, pacing the room.
Her footsteps echoed sharply. Her mind raced. If she freed the ancients, would they reshape society? Would people even accept them? Would they become mentors, or warnings? If she silenced them, would she become the next one who hid the truth? Would she repeat Archon's crime? Would she bury a civilization out of fear? She pressed both hands against her face. This is impossible, she whispered. A gentle resonance filled the room. Lira. It was the first time they had spoken her name with such softness. We do not expect perfection.
Only honesty.
She turned slowly back to the console.
Before I decide anything, I need to know one thing.
Ask. Lira swallowed hard.
If you're freed, what do you want to do? What is your purpose now? There was a long pause, the longest she had heard from them so far. Then the voices spoke, layered yet unified. We want to guide, not rule.
Lira blinked. Guide. Humanity lost its past. But the past is not a weapon.
It is a teacher. Images flickered across the screens. Ancient libraries full of knowledge. Scientists sharing ideas freely.
families living under blue skies, oceans sparkling before the floods.
We carry the memory of what humanity once was, they continued. We can help your world avoid the mistakes that destroyed ours.
Lira felt her breath slow. You don't want power.
You want to be guardians.
Not guardians, they corrected. Voices. Counselors.
Sources of wisdom, nothing more. Lira questioned them again, wary. And you don't want buddies.
No. We learned long ago that the mind alone holds more power than flesh. We do not wish to rule the living. We wish only to speak.
Her mind searched for any sign of deception,
any sign of hidden motive.
But the voices carried only sorrow, longing, and ancient exhaustion.
She took a slow, steady breath.
There's still one more problem. The council.
Exactly.
If I free you, the council will hunt both of us. And they have the technology to track any unusual data activity.
The voices shifted into a low hum.
Then you must know the final truth.
Lyra's eyes narrowed.
What final truth? Archon Veil did not destroy all of Project Ascension. Lira tensed. A portion survived, hidden in a location only you can access.
Her heartbeat quickened. Where? The room darkened again.
A single glowing map appeared, outlining a distant region outside the protected city boundaries.
A place forbidden. The dead zone. Lira stepped closer, eyes widening. You want me to go outside the domes?
Outside civilization entirely. Yes.
That's suicide.
The storms alone could kill me. Not if you reach the facility before nightfall.
Lira shook her head in disbelief. What's in the dead zone?
The voices answered with a weight that filled the entire room. The second vault. The vault that holds our missing fragments. The vault that contains the part Archon feared most.
Lira felt her blood run cold. And what is that? The screens flickered.
A symbol appeared, an ancient, intricate pattern she had never seen before. The memory of the future. Lira stared at the symbol glowing on the screen, its twisting lines, its shifting geometry, the way it seemed both ancient and impossibly advanced.
It pulsed like a heartbeat.
What is this? She whispered. The voices answered with a strange tone she had never heard from them, something like reverence and fear woven together. This, they said, is the seal of the Oracle.
Lira stiffened. The Oracle? I've never heard of that.
You were not meant to. The screens rearranged themselves again, revealing old, fragmented recordings, blurred images of scientists working around a spherical device filled with swirling light. The Oracle was the first consciousness ever uploaded into the digital realm.
A prototype.
A living mind encoded into the quantum lattice before the collapse.
Lira watched the footage closely. Who was it? A scientist?
A volunteer. The voices hesitated, a rare moment of uncertainty. She was neither. The image stabilized just enough for Lira to see the figure more clearly. A girl.
No older than 15.
Pale, with dark eyes that seemed to stare directly at her through the screen. Lira felt a cold shock run through her. A child. Yes. The project's founders believed a younger brain would adapt more easily to digital transformation.
Lira pressed a hand to her mouth.
That's horrific. It cost them dearly. The screens flickered with distressing speed, showing the child in the chamber, her body convulsing as the transfer began. The upload was unstable. Her consciousness fractured, but also expanded. Expanded how?
Lira asked, her voice trembling.
The Oracle evolved. She saw the world not as it was, but as it could become.
New images appeared. Patterns of data swirling, forming visions. Timelines branching like roots. Simulated futures flickering in and out of existence.
Are these predictions?
Lira asked quietly.
Yes. On her first day, the Oracle simulated thousands of possible timelines. She foresaw the collapse of the world.
Lira felt her heart drop.
She predicted the Skyfire War. She predicted everything. The recordings showed scientists panicking as the Oracle's simulations grew darker, more chaotic, spiraling into catastrophe after catastrophe. The world dismissed her warnings, the voices said. They feared what she showed them. They feared a child who knew too much. Lira clenched her fists. So they hid her, like they hid you. Yes. But the Oracle was never fully erased. The screens zoomed in on a single data fragment, glimmering, encrypted, sealed behind layers of protection. This fragment holds her final vision, the one she saw moments before the collapse. Lira leaned closer. What did she foresee? The voices lowered, becoming almost a whisper. The rebirth of the world through two forces. One living, and one forgotten.
Lira frowned.
What does that mean?
We do not know.
The vision was incomplete. Then why is it so important? Because Archon feared it more than anything else. He believed the Oracle foresaw his downfall.
Lyra's breath caught.
So he destroyed her. He tried. But part of her mind escaped the purge, into the second vault. Lira stared at the glowing map on the screen. That's why the dead zone is so dangerous, not because of storms but because the Council fears what's buried there.
Correct.
And you want me to find this second vault? We cannot retrieve the Oracle's fragment without you. You are the first living mind to access the Echo Prime interface in 1,000 years. Only you can complete the link. Lira felt the weight of the world pressing onto her shoulders.
You're asking me to leave the domes. To break the law.
To travel into a forbidden wasteland, to recover a fragment of a girl who predicted the end of everything. Yes.
Lira exhaled slowly.
And what if releasing the Oracle ends the world again?
A silence followed. Then, we do not know.
Lira blinked in shock. That's not reassuring.
Truth rarely is, they replied. But the Oracle did not foresee death. It was rebirth she saw.
Transformation.
Lira thought of the Council. Their lies. Their control. Their fear of the truth.
So the future isn't fixed, she said. It's a choice. Exactly. She stepped back from the console and looked around the silent room, the hum of ancient machines growing steadier, almost hopeful. If she did nothing, the ancients would go back to sleep. The truth would remain buried. The Council would continue shaping the world with lies. If she acted, she could change everything. Or destroy everything. Or both. Her voice shook as she spoke. What if I'm not strong enough for this? The voices answered with a warmth she had not heard before. Strength is not what shapes the future. Courage is. Lira closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the map of the dead zone still glowed before her, waiting. I'll go, she whispered. I'll find the second vault. The lights in the room brightened, as though the machines were taking a long-awaited breath. Then our story enters its next chapter. The chamber's silence was deep, almost sacred, as Kira, Jalen, Ray, and Lyran stepped into the innermost heart of the Celestial Archive. The lights shifted gently, reacting to their presence, as if the archive itself sensed it was about to wake after centuries of stillness. The corridors behind them sealed shut like a vault closing for the last time. There was no turning back. Ahead stood the axis of memory, a massive crystalline core that pulsed with a dim inner glow, shaped like a star frozen mid-explosion. Kira approached it, breath unsteady. This is what they were trapped inside, she whispered. Lyran nodded. 1,000 minds. 1,000 lives. Suspended in fractal time. We must be careful. Their thoughts are not separate. They drift into one another. Like a hive? Ray asked. No, like a dream shared by an entire civilization. The group exchanged uneasy glances. The first awakening. As Kira lifted her hand to the crystal surface, the core brightened sharply, lines of light blooming outward like veins awakening. The ground trembled gently. A low hum filled the room. Voices, faint at first, leaked into the air. Who walks the corridors? After so long. A new soul, not one of ours. Kira gasped. The voices were not like the earlier fragments. These were clear, conscious, aware. Lyran stepped forward. Elders of the Athron Dominion, we seek you. We have come to understand your fate and offer release. For a moment, silence. Then a sigh that sounded like wind over forgotten ruins. Release, after 1,000 years. We feared no one would come. The lights pulsed in slow, heavy waves, like the beats of an enormous heart made of memory. Jalen tightened his grip on his scanner. Are they alive? Or something else? They are aware, Lyran said quietly. That is enough. The burden of eternal thought. The core shifted its glow, and a single voice emerged, stronger, older, trembling with ancient weight. I am Artheon, last High Seer of the Athron. Speak your purpose, children of flesh.
Kira swallowed. We discovered your messages, your warnings, and we heard your suffering.
Suffering, the voice echoed with 1,000 smaller murmurs behind it. We did not mean for eternity to hurt. We only meant to preserve ourselves, our knowledge, our dreams. But we built a cage instead. Jalen glanced at Ray uneasily. They trapped themselves without realizing.
Yes, Arthian replied.
The immortality we created had no escape. Our bodies perished, yet our minds remained. We felt every cycle, every century. We counted stars until numbers lost meaning. A whisper like a cold breeze spread across the chamber. We wished to sleep, but the system did not allow sleep. We wished to forget, but memory was endless here. We wished to die, but eternity would not let us.
Ray stepped forward, voice gentle. We can help you now. Tell us what we must do.
The chamber dimmed, as though the archive itself had exhaled. The choice, salvation or silence. Arthian's voice returned, solemn and heavy with responsibility. You must decide something we could not. Our release will come only if the core is shut down.
Lyran frowned. Shut it down?
But that would erase the Atheron's entire legacy.
Not erased, the ancient replied.
Return to the universe as energy.
As starlight.
As freedom.
Kira felt her heart tighten. You want to be allowed to end.
We want an end that we could not give ourselves. Will you grant it?
Jalen looked between his friends.
If we turn off the core, their knowledge disappears forever. Everything they built.
Ray shook her head. But keeping them trapped here is worse.
No civilization deserves to suffer inside its own memory.
Lyran closed his eyes, conflicted.
If we do this, we end the greatest archive in existence.
Kira stepped forward.
But we save a people who have been begging for freedom for 1,000 years.
Silence.
A long, deep, breathing silence.
1,000 minds speak as one.
Suddenly, the voices merged again, no longer confused or broken, but unified. We give you our blessing. We give you our trust. We give you our last gift. The floor shimmered with symbols, entire libraries of information condensed into living light.
The knowledge flowed into the air like glowing threads.
Lyran's eyes widened. They are giving us copies of their wisdom, everything they learned, everything they lived.
So that nothing is lost, Arthian whispered.
So that we may go in peace.
The lights dimmed to a soft, trembling flicker, the archive's final heartbeat.
Children of the future, end our suffering.
The chamber fell silent again. The choice was no longer abstract. It was a plea. Kira's decision.
Kira stepped to the core's control platform, her hands shaking.
Ray touched her shoulder.
You don't have to do it alone.
I know, Kira whispered. But I'm the one they spoke to first.
I think they chose me to end their story.
Jalen nodded solemnly.
We're with you.
Lyran bowed his head.
Whatever happens here, the galaxy will remember this moment.
Kira placed her hands on the crystalline interface. The surface warmed beneath her touch, glowing softly as if the ancients leaned into her presence like tired spirits seeking rest. A final message whispered inside her mind.
Thank you.
The final release. Kira pressed the shutdown command. The core flared brilliantly, a burst of light so pure it washed the room in white. A deep hum rose, trembling the air, then gradually faded. The light softened, dimmed, and then went out. For the first time in 1,000 years, the voices of the ancients fell silent. Not trapped, not tormented, but free. Kira felt tears run down her cheeks.
Ray whispered, they are gone, peacefully.
Lyran looked around the darkened chamber.
The archive sleeps now. Forever.
Jalen exhaled shakily.
We did the right thing, didn't we?
Kira nodded slowly, wiping her face. Yes, we did.
But even in the silence, the air felt warm, as though the ancestors had left behind one last echo, a soft whisper of gratitude that lingered gently before fading into the universe. The chamber remained dim and quiet, the crystalline core now dull as stone. No more flickers. No more whispering voices drifting in the air. Just an immense stillness, the kind that only comes when something unimaginably ancient has finally let go. Kira stepped back from the interface, her breath trembling, her palms still faintly glowing from the last surge of the archive's fading power.
Ray softly broke the silence.
Does it feel different here?
Lyra nodded slowly.
Yes.
The spiritual weight in the room has lifted. The suffering is gone.
The energy is calm now.
Jalen let out a long breath.
I didn't know silence could feel so peaceful. They stood there for a moment, honoring the empty space that once held 1,000 restless minds, all now set free to become what they were always meant to be, memories returning to the cosmos. The legacy awakens.
Though the core was dead, the archive didn't fully shut down.
Along the walls, faint filaments of light began to glow one by one, small, floating icons, like lanterns in the dark. Lyra stepped closer. These are the memory transfers, the gifts they left behind. The entire history of their civilization. Everything they learned. Everything they dreamed. Ray reached out as one icon drifted toward her.
What is it?
Lyra smiled faintly. Portable knowledge seeds. They adapt to the mind that studies them. They are safe. Jalen picked up another.
So they are not gone.
Just freed. Kira held one in her hand. A soft warmth pulsed through her fingers, like a quiet heartbeat.
I think this is what they wanted, she murmured.
To leave behind what mattered, without being trapped inside it. The glowing symbols drifted into the air and organized themselves into a constellation-like formation, hovering above the group like stars painted on invisible canvas. Lyra's voice softened. The archive breathes one last time, not to imprison, but to pass on.
The hall of departing echoes. The group walked toward the exit chamber.
The once blinding halls were now dimmed to twilight tones, like a monument entering eternal rest. As they passed the mosaic of the ancients, something unexpected unfolded. The golden tiles shimmered and rearranged themselves, forming new shapes, not of the ancients, but of Kira, Ray, Jalen, and Lyra. Their silhouettes stood side by side, carved in the same style as the ancient leaders.
Jalen blinked.
Are those us? Ray laughed softly, still amazed. We're part of their history now.
Lyra bowed deeply toward the mosaic.
The ancients honor those who freed them. Kira felt her heart swell. We didn't come for glory, but it still feels special. The mosaic flashed once more, then faded softly into the stone, sealing their deeds into the archive's final chapter.
The return to the surface.
Climbing out of the ancient pyramid-like structure, they stepped into a sky streaked with lavender clouds. The sun was sinking toward the horizon, painting the desert with gold and violet. For the first time, the wind felt warm,
gentle,
as though the planet itself was relieved. Ray stretched her arms.
It's quiet. Completely quiet.
Too quiet, Jalen teased, nudging her shoulder. Maybe the world is catching its breath. Kira ran her hand through the sand. It feels alive. Lyra lifted his eyes to the sky where the first stars were beginning to appear. Those stars, somewhere out there, the ancients are finally resting. The four of them stood silently as the sky deepened into twilight. The message to the galaxy. Hours later, back aboard their ship, the Solace Runner, the crew prepared to send their report to the Galactic Council.
Jalen activated the console.
Ready.
Kira nodded. Send everything.
Their story deserves to be known. The memory seeds, the glowing knowledge icons from the archive, were stored safely in containment pods. Each one radiated a gentle pulse, almost like breathing lights.
Ray turned to Kira. What will you tell them?
How do you explain something like this? Kira took a deep breath and began dictating the message. We found the voices of the ancients. They were not ghosts, not machines, not data, but people. People who endured more than any species should. We freed them. And they left us their knowledge, their wisdom, and their final blessing.
She paused, her voice softening.
Let this be a reminder to all civilizations.
Immortality without peace is not life.
Memory without rest is not legacy. May we never repeat their suffering. Jalen hit the transmission key, sending the message into the interstellar network. It's done.
New beginnings.
Later, as the ship drifted gently through the starlit sky, the crew sat quietly in the observation deck.
No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Ray leaned back with a smile.
So, where to next? Jalen grinned. Hopefully somewhere without an ancient digital prison.
Kira laughed softly.
I don't need another cosmic crisis for at least a month. Lyra added. But wherever we go, we carry their voices with us, as light, not as chains.
Kira gazed out at the stars, countless, shimmering, infinite. They are free now, she whispered.
But they are also here, in every star, in every piece of knowledge, in every quiet moment.
She touched the glass.
And maybe, that's all any civilization truly wants.
To be remembered.
To be at peace.
Final echo.
As the Solace Runner soared through the night sky, one of the memory seeds pulsed brightly, then released a faint, warm chime through the cabin. A final whisper drifted through Kira's mind. Thank you, child of tomorrow. Because of you, we return to the stars.
Kira smiled, not with sorrow, but with quiet joy. Good night, she whispered into the void.
Rest well. The ship turned toward the open universe, its engines humming softly, carrying 4 explorers, and the last peaceful echoes of a long-lost civilization, across the eternal night.